So our first question for you is, in your research on judgment, certainty, and decision-making, have you found any specific cognitive or emotional factors that play a significant role in educators' ability to engage in reflective practices and improve their teaching materials?
Yeah, so I think generally being metacognitive or meta-reflective, however you want to sort of conceptualize this, is a big part of our reflective process, which is essentially thinking about your own experience, thinking about your own understanding. It's that sort of more effortful, deliberative side of cognition where we reason. And yeah, it's the harder side of the cognitive ability we have, or the cognitive functioning that we have. But the whole point, I think, of reflective practice is because in psychology we know that we rely often on assumptions and heuristics, and we do this to predict our world in a better, more efficient way, so it's a good thing. It does mean that we're limited sometimes in always expecting things to be a certain way, operating on partial information, not having the opportunity to really engage in a corrective thinking. So that's what reflective practice is supposed to be about, is really getting you to take that effortful second step in your cognition to be meta-aware, meta-cognitive. Yeah.
For the second question, how do you feel faculty can better encourage students to become reflective learners and educators in their academic journey?
I think that more discussions, that's really, I can't stress that enough. It doesn't have to be just in a workshop. It doesn't have to be, just in a formal context. It can really be this more, building this ethos within the faculty and with students to continue discourse in informal settings where you're just playing with ideas, engaging in a space of consideration about things you've learned if it's a student, or things you've learned if you're an educator, things you're trying to new things you're trying, right? Ways in which you might be bringing new ideas or new teaching practices to the table. So I think it's really about sharing and creating a space for intellectual discourse. And again, even we saw in our workshop now, defending your values, making your values explicit, engaging in that discourse with your colleagues especially, and encouraging your students to do it. One thing I tell my students is I also model this for them. So I engage in a lot of reflective practice, and I share with my students how I do that, and then I do it in front of them. So I think you can model a lot of this for them, so they see what it looks like. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we have to do it as faculty first. Yeah.
Can you share maybe a memorable example of a colleague who has benefited from your mentoring or educational initiatives, and maybe the impact that they have had on their development personally?
So I think one great example was actually recently a colleague of mine borrowed a phrase that I've been using for several years now with my students, where I say, be comfortable with uncertainty because answers are where thinking goes to die. Mm-hmm. And it stuck with him, and he started using it in his own teaching and his own actual reflective practice, where he presented to some colleagues about this idea that, I'd never really thought about the fact that when you come up with a conclusion, closure, an answer, you actually stop the thinking process. Mm-hmm. And so that's what embracing uncertainty is all about, which was my big sort of value. Yes.
So our last question to you is actually related to what was discussed in the conference just now. I think you mentioned something along the lines of reflection in peer review. So one of the participants actually had a question about how formal the incorporation of this reflection would be when it goes to referring to peer review in general.
So we're proposing, this is still in the works, right? But we're proposing that we make it a lot more explicit that the kind of peer review we want is one where the reviewee and the reviewer are in much more contact, right? And that actually, if anything, the reviewee is initiating the process of the peer review through not just handing over a dossier or a portfolio, but actually through sitting down with their reviewer, our reviewers, and making explicit, okay, this is what I'm going to try to achieve in the classroom today, or when you come see my observation. This is what my goals are, this is what I'm doing. Please focus on this, please think about this, and even engaging in a little bit of back and forth about, okay, well, why are you doing that? Can you make it clear why that's important? So having those conversations before the observation, after as well, so basically encouraging like bookending with discourse between reviewee and reviewer, and then also just, making the process so much more related to what the reviewee would like feedback on from the reviewer. So getting them to really make that clear.
Okay, I think that's all we have for you in regards to the interview. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah.